Something happened that left scientists speechless, villagers in tears and believers lifting their hands to the sky in awe. There are days when the sky forgets to cry. Not for a week, not for a month, but for 9 whole months, not a single drop of rain touched the dusty soil of Kwarakuta, a remote village buried deep within Niger State. The rivers dried up, the goats thinned, the children's bellies bloated, not from food, but from hunger. It started slowly. The rains came late. Then the next year they barely came at all. By the 3rd year the sky had turned into brass. The clouds vanished, the rivers shrank, the wells dried. And still, they waited. Every morning the elders stood outside, staring at the horizon with cracked lips and weary eyes. But the heavens remained shut. It was as if God himself had turned his face away from the village. The children walked for hours just to fetch muddy water that tasted like rust. The women boiled leaves for soup because nothing else grew. Men abandoned their farms and migrated to towns, seeking menial jobs just to survive. Crops had failed 6 times. Pregnant women had miscarriage in the heat. And at night, the only thing louder than the howling wind was the whisper, "We are cursed." The chief, a man named Baba Idris, called the village council and declared a day of fasting. Then he extended it to 2 days, then to 7 days. But nothing happened. The sun mocked them. The clouds taunted them. Not even their native rainmakers could stir a drizzle. He danced for 7 hours, shouted incantations, but still the clouds mocked them. Then one morning something strange happened. As the market vendors sat beneath their stalls wiping sweat from their foreheads, a whisper began to float around. "There's a man coming from Auchi, a man of God." Some said he was just a preacher, others said he was a healer. One man said, "I heard he walked into a madman's house in Benin and the demon ran away screaming." But most of them laughed. "Even the gods of this land have failed us," one elderly woman snapped. "And now you say a stranger will come and bring rain?" That very evening, a convoy of dusty cars pulled into the village square. And stepping out of the back seat was a man dressed in navy blue suit, with a simple black Bible in his hand and a gaze that pierced through the noise. Apostle Johnson Suleman. He didn't arrive with drama. No horns, no fanfare, just a stillness. Some of the younger boys ran to touch his robe. The women peered from behind their curtains. One man leaned against a tree and scoffed. "He looks too clean to understand suffering," he spat. Another added, "His suit is worth more than our crops." They didn't believe that he could bring the rain to the village. They had seen fake prophets. They had watched power-hungry pastors collect money and vanish like smoke. So when Apostle Johnson Suleman asked for the village to gather by the central square the next morning, many came just to mock. Apostle Suleman stood on a raised platform and held up the Bible. He didn't beg the people. He didn't plead with them to believe. He only said one thing. "By this time tomorrow, this land will drink." The laughter erupted. "Which water? You go dig well from heaven." "Pastor, I beg we need food, not fables." Even Baba Idris chuckled, shaking his head as he sipped from a clay cup of warm pap. But Apostle Suleman said nothing more. He dropped to his knees right there on the dusty ground, raised his hands and whispered in tongues. The prayer was short. Not more than 2 minutes. And when he stood up, he looked to the east and declared, "Holy Spirit, let this land feel the breath of heaven." Then he left for a nearby church. That night, something shifted. At around 1:22 a.m., the wind began to move. Slowly at first, with just a gentle breeze, but then it grew bigger. It began to shake the palm trees, rattle tin roofs, and whistle through the cracks in the village huts. Children stirred in their sleep. Dogs began to bark. The goats bleated nervously. Something was coming. Then came a thunder. One deep growl from the belly of the heavens. The elders woke up and sat upright. And then the impossible happened. A drop of water. It landed on a young girl's forehead as she slept in her mother's lap. Then another. Then 10. Then a flood. Then came the rain. It poured as if the clouds had been holding back for years. Rain slammed the dry earth, turned dust into rivers, soaked through roofs, and caused women to scream and run outside with buckets, bowls, even their bare hands, just to feel it. Some cried, some danced, some fell to their knees. One old man named Papa Sani, who hadn't walked in weeks due to arthritis, ran out into the downpour and collapsed in worship. "He is real," he cried. "The God of Elijah is still alive." By morning, the entire village was awake. Children splashed in puddles. The men checked their farms. The cracked soil had softened. Streams began to flow again. And Apostle Suleman. He was found behind the village church, sitting quietly with his Bible. When Baba Idris approached him, stunned, Suleman simply looked up and said, "I didn't bring rain. I brought the Holy Spirit, and where he moves, nature obeys." That afternoon, over 70 people gave their lives to Christ. The village shrine was burned. Witchcraft charms were thrown into the fire. Men confessed sins they had hidden for decades. Women received healing. Children who were deaf began to speak. One mother ran screaming with her son in her arms. "He was born blind. He can see now. He can see." What many didn't know was that this wasn't Suleman's plan. He had never been scheduled to go to Kwarakuta. He had been preaching in Ilorin, but at 2 a.m. he was awakened by the Holy Spirit. "Go east," the voice said. "There is a village dying, and I need you to speak." He didn't argue. He cancelled his flight, dismissed his entourage, and drove through the night. "I don't know where I'm going," he told the driver, "but the Spirit will guide us." And he did. When he got to the edge of Kwarakuta, the air grew heavier. The oppression was spiritual, not just physical. Demons of drought, idols that had sat in the land for centuries. That's why the rain didn't fall for so long. It wasn't just the climate, it was captivity. But when Apostle Suleman spoke, heaven responded. Because it wasn't his voice, it was the voice of the Spirit through a man who had emptied himself completely. Words spread like wildfire. Journalists came. Scientists visited to measure the rainfall patterns, but they couldn't explain it. There were no clouds in that region, one weather expert said. There was no forecast for rain that entire month. But the village knew. They didn't need CNN or BBC to tell them. They had seen God, and the same people who mocked Apostle Suleman lined up for hours just to shake his hand or touch his robe. One of the harshest critics, a teacher named Musa who had shouted curses when the apostle arrived, broke down in tears at the Sunday service that followed the next day. "Forgive me," he said. "I had stopped believing in anything." 2 weeks later, the farms bloomed again. Fresh yams, maize and cassava sprouted where only dust had ruled. The chief officially renamed the central square Altar of Rain, because that was where God had spoken. Apostle Johnson Suleman didn't stay long. He refused gifts. He simply told the people, "It wasn't me, it was Jesus, and he loves this village." Then he got into his car, waved goodbye, and vanished down the red dirt road, leaving behind not just puddles, but revival. Months later, a government official visited the area and called it a miraculous turnaround. The United Nations sent a team to study how unexpected rainfall revived agricultural activity. But the villagers didn't care about the reports, because every time it rained, they remembered how God saved them. Every time thunder rolled, they smiled, because they knew it wasn't the clouds that saved them. It was the moment a man spoke and the heaven listened. This is not just a story about rain. It is a story about faith. It is about the power of one man fully surrendered to the Holy Spirit. And it is about a God who still answers with fire, with rain, and with glory. When everything seems silent, when the heavens feel closed, when people mock your belief and call you foolish, remember Kwarakuta. And remember the day a man of God walked into the dust, spoke one word, and the rain came running. If this story blessed you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications for more powerful and inspired stories that will stir your faith and remind you that God is still moving, and He's not done yet. See you in the next one.